I'm Larry Fedoruk. This is I Was 8. It's the final episode of Season 3. Hope you've enjoyed the stories, and if you have, Season 4 begins promptly next week with a big trip. But to end this season, I thought it appropriate that we say goodbye to Larry. At least for a while, I Was 8.
Season 3, Chapter 13. It's Lawrence.
Somewhere around the time I was 8, I decided that I wanted to be called Lawrence. I had known all my life that the name on my birth certificate was Lawrence. I had seen my birth certificate many times. Fascinating piece of paper. Made me official. I knew that Larry was the short version of Lawrence, and I didn't mind it too much. I mean, there was this other kid at school for a couple of years called Laurie, and we figured out one day that his name, too, was Lawrence. I could have been a Laurie. Laurie sounded like a girl's name, and he was mercilessly picked on. Perhaps that's why the family eventually left town. There were not a lot of Larrys in popular culture at the time. Come to think of it, there wasn't a lot of popular culture, at least not where we lived. The predominant Larry was one of the Three Stooges. I wasn't made fun of because of that, at least not a whole lot. I was mostly picked on for being the teacher's kid, but if somebody needed that extra zinger, they would call me a stooge, or in a Moe voice tell me to get busy. Other than Three Stooges shorts on TV, I was the only Larry in town. Mind you, we didn't have a Moe either, not to my knowledge. However, one of my dad's cronies they called Curly. Dad's buddy Curly also had no hair. Most of my dad's friends, by the way, went by some nickname. Curly, who was bald. Slim, who was really fat. Sarge, sometimes called Sargy, a nickname of a nickname, was never in the Army but always said he was going to join. And Shorty, who was maybe 5 feet tall. Shorty and Lefty were the only ones not nicknamed ironically. When I was 8, I began to wonder why people called me Larry, but Donald from my class was not called Don or Donnie. Roland was Rolly, Robert was Bobby, but my idiot friend Philip was never Phil. Steve was Steve, not Stephen, but Terrence was Terrence, not Terry. It was all very confusing. Judith was Judy, but Deborah was always Deborah. Well, let's not bring girls into this. I was only 8. Don't need that yet. As you may have noted, no one in our town was named Raj, Muhammad, Zhang, or anything like that. At least not at the time, and not by design, I think. Like I said, other than a few Stooges gags now and then, I was pretty much okay with being Larry. Frankly, I didn't know I had a choice. How many choices do you have when you're 8? You're going to school. Don't be late. This is your dinner. Eat it. Take a bath. Do your homework. Do your chores. Okay. You know, my dad would often say it's a free country, but I didn't think so. I remember well my emancipation to Lawrence, the name on my birth certificate, the government document that certified my true identity, an identity that could not be diminished or shortened legally by any school kid, parent, or stooge. Any reference to me as anything but Lawrence was strictly informal. The emancipation happened when I was watching TV, a talk show. No cartoons on, I assume. The guest was Laurence Olivier. Even I knew who he was. A great actor. Possibly the greatest. So great, he couldn't even live among the other actors. He had to live overseas. I don't think I had actually seen him in anything. He never guested on Bonanza or any Stooges skits, but okay, you're a great actor. When he came out from behind the curtain, he got a standing ovation from the TV audience, and when he sat down, the host said, "Thank you for coming on the show, Lawrence. To which the great Olivier replied, "Please, call me Larry." That's when it hit me. Oh my gosh, he's Larry. How did I not make that connection before? I knew my name was Lawrence. The greatest actor in the world is named Larry. Moe would never pull a handful of hair out of his head or whack Olivier in the face with a shovel. No one would. He's Laurence Olivier, also a Larry. If he can be Lawrence, call me Larry, why can't I be Larry, call me Lawrence? 2 + 2 is 4. The world revolves around the sun. You cannot change the laws of physics, and I am Lawrence, with official government documentation as evidence. It is so registered in the Federal Archives. My first announcement was to my mother. "Mom, I am no longer Larry. I am Lawrence. And furthermore, Lawrence with a U, not a W, as in Laurence Olivier." She explained that my birth certificate was actually Lawrence with a W, and that it's a legal document that you can't just change. You have to apply to the government and to the courts, and it's very expensive. Well, I had saved almost $2.75 in nickels, and my rock collection had to be worth something. How expensive could it be? Well, apparently it cost more than that, so I made the compromise. Please call me Lawrence with a W, but don't say the with a W, just call me Lawrence, and we'll all pretend it's with a U. I went upstairs and began to change the name in all of my school books. Mom called me Lawrence. "Lawrence, come down for supper. Lawrence, finish your milk. Go practice the piano, Lawrence." Well, that was easy. Dad was a tougher sell. Oh, he initially agreed, but then he called me Larry several times. I had to correct him on each one. I'm sure he enjoyed that. I mean, what dad isn't thrilled by being corrected by his 8-year-old constantly? At one point, Dad said if I was Lawrence, then he didn't want to be called Dad. He wanted me to call him Father. Sure, Father. Done. Thank you, Lawrence. My pleasure, Father. So far, so good. However, I still had to convince my grandparents, all of my aunts, uncles, cousins. I'd have to count on help from Mom and Dad there, but I'd be on my own with the kids at school, not to mention the teachers. I realized that, wow, for a little kid, I sure knew a lot of people. One of the teachers would be no problem, Mr. Hackman. He already called me Lawrence, mostly when I was acting up in class. "Lawrence, would you care to share with the rest of the class what is so funny back there?" "No, Mr. Hackman." That was Mr. Hackman. Larry did well on a test, but Lawrence acted up in class. I didn't care about that negative connotation. I was going with Lawrence. Convincing my school friends didn't go too badly at all. First ones to get on board were, of course, Donald, Terrence, and Philip. Now, I was among the long forms. Even some of the girls liked it. Judy said I looked more like a Lawrence. Thank you, Judith. Deborah thought it sounded cooler. Thanks, Deb. The older kids still called me Fedorknob or Larry the Dork, but I didn't expect them to call me anything else. One by one, the teachers recognized my new designation, led, of course, by Mr. Hackman. The priest at our church loved the idea. He told me about Saint Lawrence. He was the patron saint of the poor. Didn't care for that much. I mean, I cared for the poor and all, and I prayed for them, but did I have to be their patron saint? "You're not," said the priest. "You just have the same name." "Oh yeah, right." Still, I secretly wished he had been the patron saint of cowboys or candy or something good like that. In school, we learned about the St. Lawrence Seaway. That was the lifeline for Canada, and that was good. And of course, there would always be the great Laurence Olivier, most magnificent actor, despite never once having appeared on The Honeymooners, with the stars Art Carney, Audrey Meadows, and Joyce Randolph. The Lawrence thing was working out pretty well. It was the new me, and I think that's what I needed all along. A change. I was in a rut with Larry. I was 8. How do I get out of a rut? I couldn't just go away for the weekend or grow a beard or switch my brand of cigarettes. No. This was it. From Larry to Lawrence. Very refreshing. I even thought of writing a letter to the Stooges. Lawrence, Moe, and Curly. Think about it, guys. It's working for me. I never did get around to that. The grandparents calling me Lawrence, 50-50. Mom's parents took to it, but Dad's folks not so much. They were just so used to calling me Johnny's kid or Hey. Uncles, aunts, cousins, went okay. Didn't bother me that much one way or the other. Didn't see them that often. The biggest problem was Uncle Walter. Thank goodness he wasn't at every family event. He actually disagreed with it vehemently, said I was a Larry, and told my parents to talk to the boy. So I started calling him Uncle Wally, which he hated, but still the point went right over his head. After 3 or 4 Uncle Wallies, he would just tell me to go out and play. On a side note, as a kid, when your elders tell you to go out and play, you know they're only interested in the go out part. They really don't care whether you play or not. Go out and play just sounds better than get the hell out of here. Go out and play. Sure, anything specific? Tag, hide and seek, baseball? No, just go out and play. They didn't really care what you were going to play or if you had anything or anyone to play with. Play was up to you, and actually, I think that was better. Yeah, there were bats and balls and bikes and toys and that stuff sometimes, but other times, you just had to throw rocks at a dirt pile for half an hour. I could spend forever just looking at my distorted self in the big chrome bumper of the Pontiac, my own personal carnival fun mirror. How long could I stand on one leg? Could I put a blade of grass between my thumbs, blow at it, and make a horn sound like my dad could? How many times in a row could I say the word fructose without slipping up and saying a dirty word? I know it's fructose, but I didn't know that then. I called it fructose. I had noticed the word on many of my candy wrappers. Oh, by the way, I never got much further than 6 in a row without dropping the F-bomb. But it was fun. It was all good. It was play. Larry was good at play. And so was Lawrence. So most people went along with the Lawrence thing. I stopped correcting the people who still called me Larry. I figured if Olivier could say, please call me Larry, then I could bestow that favor on others as well. That's what made me and Larry so great. We were Lawrences, but we knew how to treat the common people. The whole Lawrence phase lasted about a year. Might have gone on longer if not for Uncle Wally, Walter. By now, almost everyone called me Lawrence. I loved it. We were at a family gathering which featured a rare appearance by the uncle formerly known as Walter. When we came in, he saw me and said, "Why, if it isn't the young Lawrence." He called me over, put his hands on my shoulder, and said, "You know what I was thinking? You really are a Lawrence. I should call you Lawrence if that's what you want to be called, Lawrence." Without missing a second, I looked him straight in the eye and said, "It's Larry. Now I'm going to go out and play." Sure, it was spite. Seems I learned quite early how to be petty and vindictive and how to hold a grudge. Hey, what good is a grudge anyway if you can't hold on to it and call it your own and then take it out and play with it when it's called for? Just like that, I was Larry again. Took a while to switch everyone back, but I did. Larry, part of a small, exclusive club, me, the Stooge, and Olivier, who, let's face it, was only a part-time Larry. Soon after, a show called F Troop hit the television airwaves, and I was introduced to the comedic shenanigans of one Larry Storch. Membership was growing. Over the years, I have pondered if for a time in their childhood lives there was ever a Lawrence Fine, or a Lawrence Bird, Lawrence Hagman, Lawrence King, Lawrence Zonka, Lawrence David, or even Lawrence the Cable Guy. Maybe they demanded to be called Lawrence for a time. And of course, it only works if it's your first name. Like, he could never say, "Please, call me Larry of Arabia."
I Was 8 is a weekly storytelling podcast written, produced, and voiced by Lawrence Fedoruk. A new episode every Thursday on all major platforms or Lawrence's I Was 8 YouTube channel. Tell a friend about his podcast and reach out to Lawrence Fedoruk, that's Fedoruk, at larryfedoruk37@gmail.com. Gee, I guess the Lawrence email wasn't available.